The air was thick with the scent of ozone and something metallic, acrid. Batman hung suspended, not by a thread, but by an intricate web of high-tensile carbon fiber, each strand designed to ensnare with inescapable precision. Below him, gears whirred, a complex mechanism whirring to life, clearly intent on, at best, incapacitating him. At worst, well, the Caped Crusader rarely dwelled on worst. What truly gnawed at him, however, wasn't the immediate danger, but the chilling familiarity of the trap. It wasn't just ingenious, it felt personal. It anticipated his usual countermaneuvers, exploited his preferred tools, even seemed to know the specific pressure points of his armored suit. This wasn't random malice, it was calculated, informed. A cold dread, far more unsettling than any physical peril, began to creep into the edges of his focused mind. Someone knew too much. This particular labyrinth of steel and circuitry was the handiwork of a relatively new player in Gotham's growing gallery of rogues, the escape artist. His real name was Cormac Dodge, and while his theatrical moniker suggested a flair for vanishing acts, his true genius lay in engineering, particularly in the realm of digital architecture and system penetration. In the fledgling years of Batman's career, the Batcave itself was still a work in progress. A technological marvel, yes, but one whose digital defenses, while robust by civilian standards, were not yet the impenetrable fortress they would eventually become. Dodge, with his rare blend of technical prowess and sheer audacity, had found the nascent cracks in that digital armor. He had managed to worm his way into the early Batcave systems, not through brute force, but with a cunning born of deep understanding of networks and data streams. Imagine, if you will, the early 2000s internet security versus today's. Batman was already light years ahead, but even he was learning. Dodge exploited those blind spots, those initial assumptions about unassailable secrecy. Once inside, he didn't merely skim the surface, he delved deep. He gained access to Batman's early case files, surveillance feeds, forensic analyses, even rudimentary blueprints of his gadgets and vehicles. He learned not just what Batman was doing, but how he thought, how he approached a problem, how he prepared for a confrontation. And he used this knowledge to devastating effect. The early encounters with the escape artist had been puzzling. Dodge's traps weren't just difficult to escape, they seemed custom-tailored to Batman's unique capabilities, often forcing him to abandon his usual strategies or reveal new ones. What began as an intriguing challenge for the Dark Knight slowly morphed into a deeply unsettling game of cat and mouse. Each trap was more elaborate, more dangerous than the last, building upon the intelligence Dodge gleaned from his illicit access. Batman would escape one death trap, only to find the next one subtly modified, designed to counter the very methods he'd just employed. It was as if his adversary was reading his playbook, chapter by chapter, in real time. The chilling realization dawned on Bruce Wayne not in the heat of battle, but in the quiet solitude of the Batcave itself. He was reviewing a particularly close call, replaying a sequence of events where the escape artist had not only predicted his movements, but had prepared a counter for his specific utility belt grappling hook. There was no public record of his gear, no leaked schematics, only one explanation remained. The information was coming directly from his sanctum, his supposed fortress of solitude. The cold knot in his stomach tightened as he began his own furious, relentless hunt for the intrusion. Alfred, ever watchful, witnessed the quiet fury in Bruce's eyes, a grim determination forged not just by anger, but by a profound sense of violation. It was a painstaking process, but eventually, Bruce traced the digital breadcrumbs, the almost imperceptible phantom whispers in his network, back to Cormac Dodge. The confrontation that followed wasn't just physical, it was a battle of wits and wills, culminating in the apprehension of the escape artist. But the true victory for Batman wasn't merely bringing Dodge to justice, it was the harrowing lesson learned. This early breach of the Batcave's nascent security was a pivotal, almost existential shock for Bruce Wayne. It revealed a fundamental vulnerability that he had, perhaps, underestimated in his youthful zeal to fight crime. His deepest secret, his most guarded sanctuary, had been compromised. The very foundation of his war on crime relied on absolute secrecy, on the notion that Batman was an unassailable enigma. This incident shattered that illusion and forced him to confront the terrifying reality that even his most private thoughts, his most carefully laid plans, could be laid bare. The response was immediate and profound. Bruce Wayne embarked on a relentless, obsessive campaign to overhaul every single aspect of the Batcave's digital and physical security. He dedicated countless hours, untold resources, and every ounce of his unparalleled intellect to design, implement, and constantly refining a multi-layered defense system. Redundancy became his mantra, encryption his sacred text. Every circuit, every data packet, every access point was scrutinized, fortified, and re-fortified. This was the birth of the legendary, near-mythical security of the Batcave, the impenetrable digital fortress that would become a hallmark of Batman's enduring legacy. The experience with Cormac Dodge wasn't just a minor setback. It was a crucible that forged the very essence of Batman's operational philosophy. It reinforced, to an almost pathological degree, his obsessive need for secrecy, his paranoia about exposure, and his relentless pursuit of redundancy in all his systems. He vowed that such a vulnerability would never, ever be exploited again. And in doing so, he transformed what could have been his ultimate undoing into the foundational strength of the Dark Knight's enduring mystery. This story of the escape artist, Cormac Dodge, reminds us that even the greatest heroes face early failures, and that these challenges often shape them more profoundly than their triumphs. It highlights how vulnerability, when confronted head-on, can become the catalyst for unparalleled resilience. What are your thoughts on this early test for Bruce Wayne? How do you think this singular event impacted his later interactions with other villains or his approach to trust? Share your insights in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the lore of our favorite heroes.